A young black girl and her mother are watching Wimbledon on television. Venus Williams scores the winning point to become champion, and the mother turns to her daughter with a smile and says that no matter what, she can do whatever she puts her mind to. Years later, the girl, Taylor, is a teenager. She drives to her workplace, Hazelmere Golf and Tennis Club, where a number of kids of various ages are practicing tennis. She greets one of the other instructors, who tells her that her dad is looking for her. He also cheekily asks her out, which he seems to have done a number of times before, but she rolls her eyes and says she won't date another coach. He offers to quit, and she laughs, saying he'd better not because it'll double her workload. He watches her go and is hit by a ball, then yells at the kid who hit him, threatening to tell his parents. Taylor enters the clubhouse, where her dad says he'll be right with her. She watches the news, which is being broadcast on the TVs inside. There's a report on a youth called William Campbell, who's a well-known troublemaker in the tennis scene. He's a spectacular player with an awful temper who tends to lose his cool on the court, and has been involved in a number of incidents in the past. Recently, he seems to have suffered a string of losses, escalating his poor sportsmanship. Taylor shakes her head and comments on what a mess he is, but her dad grins and says he's gifted, and he loved watching him play. He turns to her and asks her if she'll say a few words at the fundraiser that's coming up, and she laughs and says he's her father and anything he asks will always be an automatic yes. He grins, hugging his daughter, and tells her not to work too hard as she heads out onto the courts. She has a class of kids awaiting her, and is strict with them, getting them running laps straight away to warm up, and then starting up practice. She encourages a young girl when she gets frustrated, showing her the correct technique and praising her when she finally manages to get the ball over the net. Halfway through the session, her friend Ashley approaches. Ashley is a well-known tennis player who used to be Taylor's doubles partner, but Taylor left the game before they made it big. One of the kids asks for a photo with her, and she obliges but says that the girl should really be asking for a photo with Taylor instead, because she's much better than her. Taylor laughs off the compliment and the girl heads off. Ashley is busy and has to duck out as she's going to be heading up a promotional event, but she promises to catch up with Taylor later over dinner, because they have a lot to catch up on and she has a favor to ask her. Taylor arrives at the restaurant on time, but Ashley has been caught up at the interview and calls her to say she's not going to make it. Taylor offers to reschedule, then is surprised to see William Campbell, the disgraced star, sitting at one of the tables alone. Ashley weakly says it's a surprise, he's her new doubles partner, and she was going to introduce them. Taylor sighs, hangs up and heads over to the table. William greets her with a handshake, but Taylor is instantly on the defensive, saying she's heard all about him from the news and seen the footage of him losing his temper. She asks what the bad boy of tennis is doing playing mixed doubles with her friend. He looks taken aback at her assessment, and answers in confusion that he's playing because he can. She's still extremely bristly, reminding him of his bad behavior on the court, and when the waiter brings over some wine, William comments that they're going to need a lot more. He sees someone filming him from across the room and holds up the bottle, saying he's ordered it because it's one of the labels that sponsors him and he needs to be seen drinking it for Instagram. Taylor asks him directly why she's there. William asks how much Ashley has told her, and she says nothing, only what she's heard on the news. He admits that they're not gelling as well as he'd hoped they would for the doubles tournament, and they need to find their groove. He fired his coach because he couldn't work with him. Taylor reminds him that usually the player should listen to the coach, and he's belligerent about it. She says the tournament is 6 weeks away, and asks him what their plan is. Then he tells her Ashley's solution, to hire Taylor as his coach, because she thinks that Taylor has what it takes to handle him. Taylor calls Ashley while William's in the bathroom, asking if she's gone crazy, and her friend just begs her for help, saying she's out of options and wouldn't have put this on her if she had any other choice. Her agent thinks that doing this tournament with William will be good for her, so she has to do it, and she wants the best chance of winning. She says Taylor should forget about him and think about it on the basis that it'll be helping her friend out. William returns and Taylor says she'll have to call Ashley back. William thanks her for coming, and preemptively says it's a shame it didn't work out. He clearly has no interest in working with her either. Prompted to spite him, Taylor decides then and there she's going to at least give it her best shot, and tells him to come to the club the next day so they can get started. She's going to at least try it out. He says that he doesn't try out, but she insists, and groaning, he gives in, knowing that he needs this doubles tournament as badly as Ashley does, with his recent losing record. When William arrives, he's introduced to Taylor's dad and to Juan Carlos, the other coach who asked Taylor out before. He's taken aback, because he thought it would be a private session, but Taylor tells him she wants him to play a friendly game against her dad and Juan Carlos, so she can see how he plays. Initially he refuses, but then Ashley scolds him and asks if he can try not being himself for just an hour, and get this done. He shakes his head, irritated, but agrees. They lose a point immediately, and William yells at Ashley rudely. Taylor sits them both down and makes them watch the footage, and explains that they lost the point because Ashley, who was behind William, didn't know which way he was going to go, so she went to the wrong side of the court. He needs to communicate better. He instantly gets defensive, asking why she's blaming him. But she says it's not about blame, it's because he's thinking as an individual player and he needs to think as half of a pair. William sighs, but agrees to take on Taylor as a coach, understanding that she can at least identify the issue, and willing to see if she can fix it. The next day, Ashley is training early on the court with Taylor. William hasn't shown up on time because he's at a photo shoot for a sponsorship deal. Irritated, Taylor asks Ashley where the shoot is, determined that if she's going to put her time in, then she's going to make him take this seriously. At the shoot, the photographer is telling William he needs more attitude, more drive, because he's not playing up to the camera enough. He tries to get him to pretend to be a Panther. His agent, Barry, hands him a racket and tells him to act up, practice his serve or something, because what he's doing isn't working. Annoyed, William follows his instructions. Taylor and Ashley show up, and Barry is confused at Taylor's appointment as the new coach. He says it's something William would usually have run past him, but Taylor says she's doing it as a favor to Ashley. She exclaims that she needs William on the court with Ashley, because if they can't practice then they won't win. She says tennis is a mental game, that William needs to work on his confidence, and both of them look over at the man who is feebly attempting to do what the photographer is asking of him, while clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Barry sighs dramatically but agrees to let Taylor have her way, calling William back and saying they'll have to work with what they've got. He's not happy about it, but he doesn't have much choice other than to let Taylor drive them back to the club. There is a ton of traffic, though, and they waste the whole morning in the car. William leans into the front, apologizing, and although both girls are angry at him for wasting their time, he claims that he had to pretend to be a Panther and that's punishment enough. Taylor laughs despite herself and the atmosphere eases somewhat. William promises that he'll get Barry to clear his schedule for the mornings going forward. However, they won't be able to practice that day because of the fundraiser that afternoon. Ashley promises on behalf of them both that they'll be there to support it, as an apology, and William shrugs and says he'll go along with it. At the fundraiser, Taylor makes a short speech about her late mom's devotion to raising scholarships for underprivileged youths, and thanks everyone for coming and making her passion a reality. The crowd is bigger than expected, as word got out that Ashley and William would be there. Taylor's dad takes Ashley to meet some of the donors, and Taylor goes to find William, who's signing autographs and looking pretty handsome in a tailored suit. She's decided to try and make peace with him as they've been getting along a little better. She offers him some wine, and says it's sponsor approved in case any Instagrammers are lurking. He screws up his face and jokes that he'd say they couldn't pay him to drink this stuff, but obviously, they do. Taylor laughs, and William asks if Barry is there yet, but Taylor says she didn't know he was coming. William shrugs and said he told him he wanted to talk to him. He asks if any of her students are at the party, and she says it's mostly the parents. William seems to recoil a little at that, claiming parents always put too much baggage and expectations onto their children, before admitting that his own father thought tennis was a terrible career choice. Taylor frowns, asking if his father's proud of him now that he's a champion, but William doesn't reply. Just then, Barry is seen arriving, and Ashley interrupts their conversation, saying she needs to borrow William for the press. Taylor says she'll handle Barry, and he wishes her good luck before following Ashley away. Barry asks Taylor frankly why she's getting herself involved, and she tells him the truth, because Ashley is her best friend. He retorts that he's looked into her background and it's making the sponsors nervous because they think it's a stepping stone for her way back into the pro scene. She turns the conversation around angrily, asking him why William's really doing the doubles tournament. Any pro athlete would avoid doing anything that might injure themselves unless they really needed to do it. Barry doesn't answer and tells her she needs to back off because she's out of her league. Their intense conversation is interrupted by William, who's come over to ask Taylor if she wants to dance. She thanks him for saving her, and he grins, saying he knows Barry is a lot. They start to dance and he tells her about the time he was in a celebrity dance show. She surprises him by complimenting him, that he stuck with the show and saw it all the way through until he was voted out. And that's what she needs to see from him in tennis, just commit to seeing it through to the end. He likes her honesty and agrees to do his best. He admits that he was voted out first, and she laughs and says she knew that because she watched it. The following day, they're practicing in a thunderstorm. William asks if they're going to go ahead due to the weather, and Taylor says they are if he wants to win. She jokes about teaching him to move like a panther, and he rolls his eyes but goes along with the teasing. Ashley heads indoors to work on her service, and Taylor coaches William out on the court alone. He's arrogant about his serve, but she shows him up straight away. Curious, he asks her about why she never returned to the pro circuit after she quit to look after her mom. She deflects the question and says she's not there to talk about her, and he needs to get working on his serve. Taylor tells him that his toss is his tell. Like a poker hand, she knows immediately where he's going to serve the ball as soon as he tosses it. After watching footage of him, it's obvious. She says he needs to learn to disguise it, and demonstrates some tosses of her own. He's impressed by the fact that she actually has something to teach him. Just then, though, her class arrives, and Taylor has to go and sort out the kids. They're immediately intimidated by William's presence, but she tells them to ignore him because he's just a normal guy, ignoring a flirtatious comment from Juan Carlos who just arrived. William watches her with the children, seeing how encouraging she is, and smiles. He walks across the court, addressing one of the boys and telling him he's got a great serve. He asks Taylor if it's okay to cut in, and she agrees, watching him happily as he helps the kid improve his technique. After the session, he lets the kid keep his racket, and Taylor smiles, pleasantly surprised by his willingness to help and his coaching manner. Later, she and Ashley are at lunch and she confesses that she's actually coming around to William a lot. She offhandedly says that sometimes she's full of rage and other times she wants to hug him, and Ashley questions why she'd ever want to hug him. He comes to the table and sits down, and Taylor says that they're going to need to learn to relax together as a pair, because at the moment they're too tense on the court, and she has a suggestion as to how. The three of them hike out into the forest together, and Taylor asks them to forget all their competitive feelings. They are unable to stop themselves, though, and Ashley races William down the path, but stumbles and crashes to the floor, injuring her knee. They go straight to the hospital, but Ashley is told she's going to need physical therapy for 6 weeks, and the tournament is in 3, so there's no way she can play. William is sympathetic, encouraging her that she'll be back on the court in no time, then takes a call from Barry, who's very unhappy about the news and is trying to find a replacement partner for him. Unfortunately, it seems as though his bad reputation has caught up to him because no other pros are willing to work with him on such short notice. He says that there's one option, though, a talented and gutsy person who was a rising star before she stepped off the pro circuit. Horrified, Taylor asks if he's talking about her, saying Barry will never let him, that he doesn't even like her being involved in coaching. William is frank with her, though, in a way he hasn't been before. He says he needs the win in this tournament because right now everyone sees him as this unstable person who used to be good, but now just has meltdowns on the court. After this recent loss streak, he needs a win, or his career might be over. Barry signed him up for the mixed doubles to get him to focus more on the game, on working with the partner and forgetting about the fame of it all because he's been getting distracted and it's affecting his confidence. Taylor is still hesitant, although she has a newfound respect for Barry after discovering his motives. She's not got the confidence in herself to play at that level. Ashley, though, thinks it's a great idea and teases her that she doesn't want to put up with William's griping if she's the reason he can't play. Taylor is running out of excuses, but says she'll take a day and think. Later, she's talking to her dad, and he also encourages her to go for it, saying she hasn't lost a step since she played full-time. And while her life right now is good, it's not the one she or her mother dreamed of her having. The next day, William shows up bright and early at Taylor's door. He has a whole speech prepared, telling her he has no relationship with his family, that tennis is his whole life and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get back to being the player he used to be. He trusts her, and that's not an easy thing for him to do. She surprises him, though, by agreeing right off the bat, and he pauses, confused, saying he had so much more to convince her with. She laughs and says that she's willing to trust him too. They shake on it, and for the first time, it feels like they're actually starting to become friends. On the court, Taylor and William practice against Juan Carlos and her dad, and start learning quickly how to communicate with each other. They do some yoga to flex their muscles and focus on their inner calm. William's not sure about how it's going to help him, but does it at her insistence. Taylor suggests they get to know each other better, so they feel closer on the court. She asks him about his dad. He reluctantly tells her that he was supposed to take over his dad's restaurant, and even though he's a world-class athlete, they don't talk because his family still sees him as a disappointment. She suggests he invite them to the tournament to watch, but he refuses. Then they discuss dating, and it turns out neither of them have had a serious relationship in a while, because they're too busy. Taylor returns to the club and finds her dad there. He asks her how the training's going, and she says she's nervous about it, and that she and William are spending every waking second together until they have a joint meltdown. He suggests the two of them take a break together to their lake house that weekend to relax a little, so they don't overtrain. Taylor initially protests, saying she'll probably drown him in the lake before the end of the weekend, but realizes that it might actually be quite a good idea. After they arrive, they settle down on a blanket by the lakeshore. For once, William agrees that Taylor was right. This was a good idea. He wants to find a place like it to reside in once his career's over. He doesn't have the charm to commentate or the patience to coach. Taylor doesn't argue with him. He asks her what her plan is, and she says she doesn't know, but she's not worried. She's survived the worst thing ever, and now she has the confidence to go about her life knowing she can make it through anything. He's surprised by the depth of her answer. They spend time together at the lake house, reading, relaxing, and playing games. It starts to rain one evening and they play a game of truths. They ask trivial questions, getting to know each other better, until Taylor asks him if he still enjoys playing tennis. He admits that sometimes he does, other times, he wishes he was better at it. When he was young, he used to think if he was the best on the court, his parents would show up, so he always kept trying. Recently, he's been enjoying playing a lot more since he's been practicing with her. She's touched by his story and is beginning to understand the reasons behind his prickly personality. He admits over dinner that he's actually been mellowing out a little bit recently, but he still emphasizes his temper a lot for the crowd. Since he can't win, it's what the fans expect of him. It's stressful keeping up the persona, but with every loss, he loses more fans, more influence, and more confidence, and it's a vicious cycle. She's sympathetic, but he then says he's going to be honest with her, and he thinks that her speech earlier about being confident because of surviving her mom passing away wasn't true. He thinks she's more scared than ever, that she's clinging on to the safety of her dad and the club because she's afraid to take a risk and get back on the pro circuit. She protests that she's doing it to support her dad, but promises to think about his words carefully. They arrive at the hotel for the tournament and Barry is there to greet them. He takes William away for a TV interview, and Taylor finds that he's booked her into a king-size suite. They see William's interview, and he's proud and confident of their team, saying he knows they can win. Taylor is nervous though, knowing that this will either launch her career or destroy it. Ashley and Taylor's dad are in the crowd for their first game. William comments that it was nice of him to show up, and Taylor reiterates again that he should invite his own family, but he still doesn't want to, because he's scared they won't accept his invitation. They step up to play, and sweep it easily in 2 sets, trusting in each other and playing well. That night, they're celebrating at a bar, and Ashley asks them if they'd consider being a partnership for longer, since it seems to be working out. The injury came at a good time for her because she's realized that she needs some time away from the game, to travel to places outside of tennis and connect with herself a bit more. Taylor is shocked, but happy for her friend. They both hug her and William says he'll only agree to be Taylor's partner permanently if Ashley promises to miss him. Ashley leaves, and Taylor tells him not to think about the future just yet, that they need to focus on this tournament for now. Barry approaches and chides them for drinking champagne, telling them they can't be celebrating just yet. Katrina, a representative of one of William's sponsors, joins the group and compliments Taylor on her style on court. She says that if William can avoid any more on-court theatrics that the company is willing to extend his deal, but he cuts in and says that Taylor has to be involved in any future agreements. Barry and Taylor are both taken aback by this, and he goes on to explain that if they continue their arrangement as a mixed pair, he'll want the same deals extended to both of them. Taylor tries to talk him out of it, but Katrina loves the idea, saying this is the new William Campbell and she's here for it. Barry, unsure what's happening but happy to have gotten his deal, takes Katrina away to discuss it. Taylor confronts William, and he shrugs and says they're partners now and they have to look after each other. She's touched, but still unsure if she wants to continue permanently, but William tells her she shouldn't be afraid to chase her dreams anymore. They keep winning until they reach the finals of the tournament, gathering fame and fans along the way. During an interview, Taylor says she can't quite believe it's all real. When asked if there's anything more to their relationship than tennis, she denies it, but William hints it might change. On the way back to her room, she asks him what he meant by his comment, but he's deliberately evasive, not feeling brave enough to tell her directly how he feels about her. He walks her to her door and suggests that they could walk around the city the following day and do something fun together. They hug goodnight, and he tells her that there's nobody he'd rather be there with. She smiles shyly and heads into her room. The next day, they discuss the idea of a permanent partnership more solidly, about the logistics of which one of them would move, and how it would work. Taylor's still afraid, asking what happens if it doesn't work out, but William is sure that it will. Nothing will pull them apart. They head to a restaurant for dinner. Taylor is trying to talk to William about something important, asking him if he likes surprises, but before she can say anything more, he puts on a song on the jukebox and pulls her into a romantic slow dance. He looks into her eyes and tells her sincerely that he's relaxed on the court because of her, that she's all he can hear, the only thing he listens to. He's being brave and finally voicing the feelings between them. But Taylor is afraid, saying it could ruin everything. He says it's okay if she doesn't want it, but as he starts to back away she can't hold herself back anymore and kisses him. He's taken by surprise and eagerly kisses her back, continuing to dance until the end of the song. When they get back to the hotel, though, the surprise Taylor was talking about becomes apparent. She's invited his parents to come to see the final. He turns to her, furious, saying she should have asked him about it. She apologizes, saying perhaps she was projecting, but she was only doing what she thought he would want. He understands her reasons, but is still very angry that she went behind his back. He shakes his head, claiming this was a mistake, and walks off without another word. Barry comes out to find William lying alone on the court. For once, he sides with Taylor, saying that she's right. He's always on William's side, and he agrees with her that William has unfinished business with his parents that he needs to resolve before he can be the best player he'll ever be. Barry cares about him a lot, and Taylor does as well, which is why she reached out to them, because she wanted him to beat his demons and be happier and fulfilled. Taylor is with her dad at a restaurant, distracted by her thoughts. She's upset about the fight with William and also worried that if she wins the final, her career will start again. Her dad doesn't understand why that's a bad thing, and she says it's because she'd have to leave him all alone. He takes her hand and promises her he'll be fine. He needed her when her mom first died, but now he's doing okay and he wants her to follow her heart and achieve her dream again. She can't keep holding herself back on his account. For the first time, Taylor hears his words and actually begins to believe them. William, meanwhile, is sitting down with his own parents. His dad explains to him that he wasn't around because he had to take a second job to support William's tennis career. He couldn't afford the equipment just from the restaurant, but he knew William would have quit playing if he realized what was happening. William understands for the first time why they weren't around for him, and they take the first steps towards reconciliation. He says he needs to talk to Taylor and apologize to her before the match, and he's looking forward to seeing them in the stands. Taylor is sitting with Ashley in the changing room. William isn't answering her calls and she's pretty sure he's going to stand her up. She understands why she broke his trust, and in her eyes, he's justified. Ashley asks if she's still going to relaunch her career, and she nods. No matter what happens tonight, she's going to turn pro again, because she's ready to get back to her life. She walks out on the court, but William isn't there. However, a moment later he appears behind her and apologizes for being a jerk. She says he was entirely within his rights to be angry, but he waves it off and says he's never right. She smiles, knowing that everything's okay between them, and they head over to their side of the court, where he strikes up a conversation about what to have for dinner. She laughs, confused, but goes along with it, happy that they've slipped back into their easy relationship. In the middle of the match, though, Taylor's choking. William tries to calm her down, making normal conversation while pretending to strategize. Taylor's grateful for his manner, asking him how things went with his parents, and he tells her it went well. When they get back to the game, she's fired up and in the zone again. However, on match point, she falls and sprains her ankle. They call for a medical timeout, and the physician rushes over to treat her. She advises her that it probably won't cause any permanent damage, but it will be painful to stand on, and there's a risk she could make it worse if she goes back out. Ashley tells her not to risk it, that it's not worth potentially losing her career for one game, and William agrees, saying that with everything they've accomplished, he doesn't care, he's happy to have come this far. Taylor, though, is torn, desperate to get him the win that he needs, and wanting them to become ranked so they can compete together as a pair. Her dad comes down to the courtside, and Taylor asks him what her mom would have said. He says her mom always trusted her instincts, and whatever she feels she should do is right. Taylor takes a deep breath and stands up, saying that a champion doesn't quit. Delighted, William takes her hand and helps lead her back onto the court. When they get out there, Taylor offers him strategy advice, but he's concerned she won't be able to make the play because of her injury. She asks if he trusts her, and he smiles and confirms he trusts her 100%. Everyone in the stands is fired up, and William serves for the win. Taylor makes the movement just as she described, and they win the match. William rushes over to her as she collapses on her bad ankle and helps her up. The crowd applauds wildly, and Taylor looks at him, telling him everything's going to change. He smiles, claiming it won't be everything, and leans in to kiss her right there on the court. Everyone cheers, and they separate to wild applause and raise their hands to the crowd in victory.